This isn't a race to the bottom. We're in a crisis with living standards in Britain. Most workers in Britain cannot afford to make ends meet and have got no conditions at all. Because we've managed to maintain some through our strength and our organisation, doesn't mean we should follow everyone else down the pan and end up in poverty.
Well, Eddie Dempsey is leader of the RMT, the union behind this week's walkouts. You saw him just in that report there. Great to have you with us in the studio, Eddie. You heard from commuters there, some taking 3 to 4 hours to get to work, estimated cost to the economy of £230 million. What have you achieved? Well,
look, we don't take any pleasure in causing disruption. I'm a Londoner, I love the city. But at the same time, we're unapologetic about fighting for our members. We're a democratic organisation. My members decide what they want, and then I'm supposed to go out and deliver that. It is tough on people, I get that. I speak to people around the city, but you've just heard the economic value that our members bring to the economy. We've helped to deliver £166 million in a surplus to TfL's budget. We're delivering that with 2,000 less staff than we had before the pandemic. That means the shifts are becoming more onerous and more difficult. And this is a priority for our members. We've been discussing it for a long time in London Underground. It's worth mentioning we've also got a dispute with Docklands Light Railway and also with outsourced cleaners on that contract too. 5 days, London ground to a halt, millions of people's lives disrupted. What did you achieve? Well, we're back around the negotiating table now, so that's a start. The Mayor of London has had to come out and instruct TfL to come back to the negotiating table with us. They refused to make an offer before the strike, so now they're back prepared to discuss with us unconditionally a settlement, so that's a move forward. TfL said they did make an offer, 3.4%, which they say you didn't ballot your strike members on. Are you holding London to ransom? We don't hold anyone to ransom. We're a democratic organisation withdrawing our labour legally. What we're trying to do is get a fair settlement for our people. The 3.4% that's on the table, we're broadly there with that. We're not looking for more money on top of the 3.4%. So why didn't you ballot your members on that? Because as I said, we're a democratic organisation. We don't ballot our members every 5 minutes. We consult our members for our democratic structures. You could have chosen to do that, couldn't you? That was a choice. Yeah, and it's our choice. And our members determined that they didn't want a ballot. They wanted us to press on, seek improvements towards a 32-hour week, and without that, to move into industrial action. So that's what we've done. So a 32-hour week, that's what your members want? That's the goal. Why should tube workers get that when the average worker in the UK does, what, 36.5 hours a week? So we had an independent study published by the University of Greenwich last year. The shift work, particularly the shift work our members work in London Underground, has got a very bad impact on people's health. You can lose up to 10 years on your life. It leads to cardiovascular problems. And a lot of our members now are going into ill health before they get to retirement. How we can get better shifts is through reducing the working week. We work round the clock, 24/7, 364 days a year. So that's really important to our members, and we want to make some progress in that direction. We're not asking for an immediate drop, we're asking for a move towards us. We're prepared to negotiate reasonably, we're prepared to compromise. As I said, we've been discussing this since 2018. So where's the compromise? It's a priority. What are you prepared to accept? We will have to see what happens at the negotiating table. If they make moves towards us that are reasonable and acceptable to our members, we'll move forward with them. Most station staff get, what, 52 days of annual leave a year, is that correct? Yeah. That's a lot more than the average, which is kind of 34 days for most of us, isn't it? TfL have said that your members could trade some of that, maybe 15 days of that, and reduce their working week. If you are so concerned about fatigue, why not do that? Because it's a shift work, as I've said. So, look, we won't do the negotiation here. We'll do that in the room. If they make progress that's acceptable to our members, we'll move. Just one thing I will say, this isn't a race to the bottom. We're in a crisis with living standards in Britain. Most workers in Britain cannot afford to make ends meet and have got no conditions at all. Because we've managed to maintain some through our strength and our organisation, doesn't mean we should follow everyone else down the pan and end up in poverty. I think we need to address this crisis through the wage packet. You said the 3.4% that's on offer is probably acceptable. Yeah. So we're broadly there with the money. But we need to make serious progress on looking at how we address fatigue and shift work in London. It's becoming absolutely critical to our members. 2,000 less staff, we're delivering record numbers of ridership. It's really serious for our members, so we've got to carry out their wishes and we've got to seek some improvements in that area. You're meeting with TfL on Wednesday. Yep. If you don't get what you want, if there isn't a shift, are you prepared to go on strike again? We're always prepared to negotiate and we're always prepared to strike. One other thing is worth mentioning. The entire trade union movement now has backed a call from us to have an urgent summit with the Mayor about industrial relations in TfL and in London overall, because we've got a legislative agenda from the Labour government of the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation and improvement of living standards. But in London, thousands of our members are outsourced, 0 hours contracts are rife in the infrastructure. We're going in the total opposite direction. So we have got a much broader picture of industrial relations that we're reasonably trying to sort out before we get to the point of further action.
It will be really alarming to lots of people who struggle to get to work. Many have had to not get to work, have maybe had to take holiday. You know, it's been a really tough week for lots of us, including, I'm sure, all of us around the table trying to get around London. People will be concerned that you're saying we're not prepared to rule out strike action. I get, you know, you lead a union, you can't say you wouldn't.
Into the negotiations.
But when could that be, again, in weeks, in months?
No,
you
look,
know, what are you looking at? What's the time frame?
Well, look, Londoners can rest assured. We will go to the negotiating table and we will make every effort to find a reasonable solution to this dispute.
OK.
And if we can't, our members will have to come through their democratic structures and decide what steps we take next.
Joe, Sean, what do you make of what you heard? Do you have sympathy with the workers at TfL, Joe?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating, of course, that there's strike action. I don't think anyone wants to take strike action. Londoners don't want to see it. I'm sure the workers at TfL don't want to see it either. I think the most important thing is that the negotiations get back on track as soon as possible, and that we avoid this happening again.
But do you support the strike action? Do you agree with what we heard there from Eddie, that these workers are working at unacceptable conditions with shift patterns that are making them ill?
Well, it's not for me to tell Eddie how to run his union or what his members think.
You could support workers.
What this government is doing, and Eddie made this point, is we're delivering the biggest upgrade in workers' rights in a generation, including 0-hour contracts, sick pay on day one,
none of it in London.
and that is all coming down the line with the Employment Rights Bill. So this government is very clearly...
But right here, right now, are you supporting this strike?
I want the negotiations to succeed and that to avoid further strike action. I think that's what Londoners want, and I'm sure that's what the members want.
Should it be ruled out?
Workers also want to see Labour supporting them, and when you're not, this is a reason why plenty of working class people are drifting away from
that is why we are passing this landmark workers' rights legislation.
And delivering absolutely none of it in London.
OK.
Total opposite direction.
Sean, your view on the strikes?
Absolutely 100% do not support the strikes. It's very easy when you work for a very powerful union in a very well-paid job relative to people who work at the same level of employment to flex that muscle. But let's be clear, I used to be a security guard. I spoke to two of my friends who are both security guards still. Neither of them have been to work in those 5 days. They simply could not work. They will not get that money replaced. So when you run your union, you have to be careful about the effect your power has on other workers who don't have any power. That's the first thing. Secondly, as well, TfL staff largely are very well paid because they have amazing pensions. All of us around the table, I don't know if you work for TfL, would love to have that pension. So let's be clear, you're not talking about people who are suffering in the same way that many other workers are.
Eddie, what would you say to those people who have lost out on their salaries?
I think your pension will be all right now you've gone in the Lords. But
Eddie,
I'll take your point.
what would you say to the people that Sean's talking about there, who have lost their salaries,
he makes an absolutely fair point. Look, it is a really serious decision we have to take when we consider industrial action. We do not want to disrupt Londoners, and we don't like hurting workers. But we're a democratic organisation and we make no apologies for doing what it says on the tin.
Was 5 days too much?
The reason the reason why so many people haven't got those conditions is because they haven't got a trade union and they haven't got anyone backing them, Sean.
You could argue...
Get behind your mates.
You could argue that you've gone too far.
You should be arguing for better wages,
You could argue that you've gone too far. To have decent work conditions, I've had many a poor job. I know it's like... But I'd argue you've gone too far. You're supporting your members, you're not supporting workers by doing what you've done.
But here's the thing, everyone backs good wages and good conditions, but the only people they won't support is the actual people fighting to achieve them. Anyone who puts their head up and wants to fight for workers,
let me just bring this back to Sean. What should the Mayor be doing to try and resolve this? Sorry, Joe.
Well, the Mayor should be encouraging everyone to get round the table and work out a negotiated agreement.
And
that is what's going to happen next week. And if you look, I mean...
Should he have stepped in like he did last year with the 30 million?
100%.
He's the chairman of TfL.
This is where you and I will agree. He is a chairman of TfL. He should never have stepped out. He should always be in. We're talking about a mayor who's utterly failed on strikes. He came into being mayor saying he'll be a zero strikes mayor. Well past that point. And let's be clear, he has to speak to the workers, and he hasn't.
I think the mayor, on behalf of Londoners, if you look at TfL, he negotiated a very good settlement out of the comprehensive spending review to invest in new trains and infrastructure. The last thing he wants to do is have strike action. That's
but
why
he's had the most, by far.
But the way you resolve that is negotiating round the table to get to a solution.
That's absolutely true. And here's the fact. He went on social media and said we should get round the table. This man is the chair of TfL. He's got my phone number. He should invite us to a meeting instead of going on social media. He's only done that after 5 days of strike action, and now he's got to attend this summit. We're going to be watching carefully to discuss this agenda you're talking about, and if he doesn't want to attend that, then our members are going to be asking.
We must leave it there.
He's abandoned the situation.
We will obviously be returning to this. Eddie, thank you for coming in.
Cheers.